All right, I guess we could get started now. Hi, Veronique.
I'm
Can you hear us?
trying to set up I'm not, but it will come. I can hear you through my computer, not through this yet.
Oh, I see. We can see you.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna share my screen and just show the agenda and talk about stuff. Here we go. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so today's meeting, we're going to approve our minutes from our last meeting in October. We're going to just have a discussion about the leaf blower forum number 2 and talk about leaf blower stuff. 3, talk about the climate emergency declaration. At 8:30, we're going to have Matt Zaft chime in, and he's going to talk about his interest in bringing solar panels to the pool building as a way to offset the carbon footprint of all the electricity that's used to keep the pool heated and stuff like that. So we're going to hear from him, and then, I think Jack has been to maybe one of the stormwater committee meetings, and maybe he can give us an update. And if we have time at the end, I'm just sort of curious to have a conversation about those LED lights at the Little Falls and what people's thoughts are as far as why those blossoms are already lit up for the next year, whether that's a function of a light or is that a function of climate change? I don't know what, but I just want to have an LED light conversation. Okay, we have Donna joining us now. Hi, Donna. Okay, she should be there shortly. So let me just make sure Donna's with us before I start, because this is going to be, Donna, can you hear us? Donna?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I wanted to go through this quick list of stuff related to the leaf blower, because I think that there's some people that missed a couple of the meetings, and for their benefit, and since we're all doing this together as a committee, that I just wanted to bring people up to speed. Every iteration of this leaf blower process, this educational process, new questions are asked and then they're addressed. And each time we're all learning about interesting information. So, excuse me, I'm going to just go through it real quick. Summary of leaf blower information. I think the first and foremost at the top of the list, and it always will be at the top of the list, is this is a public health issue. They have real impact on families and landscapers. The Mother Earth Project has a webpage now that has been beefed up with information that has been accumulated by the whole movement in Montgomery County to get that ban there. So I have more science, and I think some people are starting to go to the science and learn about the actual concerns. Even though I have heard some people ask questions saying, well, maybe we can still have gas-powered leaf blowers, but more quiet. But the bottom line is these blowers are not only loud, but they have low frequency penetration into people's houses. That's something that the battery-powered ones do not have. And I think that it's worth noting that this the petition that we distributed had a widely supported by hundreds of people who wrote to me personal notes, who signed the petition, and many of them are very, very concerned and eager for this next step forward, the possibility of banning them, because their lives have been negatively impacted, and they've expressed it very clearly. Having said that, there also have been other people, particularly in the listserv, and people who have contacted me directly that have shown concerns about the ban, whether it's going to, whether it's necessary, what's the science? It's not such a big to-do. Why do we have to rush? Different questions. And I've basically spent a lot of time with each one of them, addressing their concerns and 100% of the time I have come to a point where they no longer have any more questions. And I think they all understood that there is a public health issue at stake. In addition, there was an interest by council members to talk to minority-owned landscapers about this transition. And I spoke to two of them, Enrique, who is our town foreman, and also another gentleman by the name of Joe, who is my landscaper. And they both indicated that the transition of battery-powered leaf blowers is possible, and that health and safety is a major issue. I mean, Enrique was point blank with me when I had a personal conversation with them in person. He said, you know, this is the most important issue, and I talk to my staff every day. And so, you know, the thing about it is, unfortunately, is that even with Enrique's due diligence with his workers, you know, there really aren't masks that are sufficient to protect them from the gasoline fumes and emissions that come from these machines. That the only really these half-mast respirators are the only thing that can actually protect them, and those are a major things to wear. So even though most of our focus is on the noise, you know, gasoline inhalation is a major issue too. And then I learned from Enrique about how these backpack leaf blowers take about a half an hour to charge, and they last about a half an hour to be used up. When he was doing the tennis courts, it took him about a half an hour. So basically all you need is a backpack, leaf blower, and an extra battery. And you just plug it in, you swap it out like you're doing it with a power tool, like, you know, my cordless power tool. You know, people are concerned about the landscapers are not, these minority landscapers are not going to be able to survive. And we had actually two guys, John Shorb and Chris Kirby, talk about how they have already transitioned very smoothly. And it turns out my landscaper I offered to split the cost of one of these leaf blowers, and he's very open to doing it. He said, sure, we'll split it. Because, you know, he, as it turned out, had bought a 74 dB machine for $450, whereas he could have instead spent that money to buy the same thing as a battery pack leaf blower. There has been some confusion at the town council meeting 2 days ago that these machines are not as strong as the gas-powered ones, but I just want to say that the illegal ones that are over 70 dB are more powerful than any other machine. They're illegal because they're loud, and loud means more powerful. But the legal gas-powered leaf blowers are about 580 CFMs versus this Ego battery-powered leaf blower, which is 600. So the battery power is actually slightly more powerful than the legal gas-powered one. So I just want to make that clarification, because for some reason people think, oh, they're not strong enough. But well, if you compare the legal ones to each other, they compare. So, you know, I think the most interesting thing that I found is that John Shorb said that he's already transitioning because he has a lot of clients in DC that he wants to maintain and retain. So he's already transitioning to the leaf blower, the battery power leaf blowers. And I think that that's a pretty clear indication, since we have a large city next to us with landscapers that do work both in Montgomery County and DC, that the transition is already happening. People know it's not going to be enforced until January 1, 2022, but it's already in place. It's also in place in Chevy Chase Village. So people, you know, that's the whole idea, is basically during this education campaign that we all start to talk to our landscapers about this transition period. So when there is a gas powered leaf blower that's about to die, or you discover that it's illegal, then you ask your landscaper to replace it with one of these Ego battery powered ones. And if they balk, then say, I'm willing to chip in to make this happen. So that's sort of the hope. I'm sorry for this long monologue because I really want everyone's input, but I just want to get this information out really quickly. I'm almost finished. And the last thing is that there has been some conversation amongst council members about enforcement and how that will go. And that's something that is in process, but our hope is that to engage the council members actively in providing, solution ideas as a way to participate in the process, as opposed to just putting up red flags saying this is not going to work, but actually we would love to have their active participation in something. So I just breezed through all of these issues. There's obviously minutia that is connected to each one of them, but I would like to get everyone's individual feedback and just see where you guys are sitting on this issue.
You want to point to us or do you want us to start?
You can go ahead first, Veronique.
Okay. Well, first, I want to applaud you for the work. It's, one of the things that I told you, at least I cared about, our family cares about, a little bit of a pet peeve, and you went right in and attacked that one because I think everybody's at home. So there's multiple opportunity moment. And then I want to apologize that I've not been necessarily participating very actively, except, we had a few conversation on this, but one of the things that I missed is the last education meeting you had, but I followed the listserv closely, etc. And the thing that I understand is to go relatively and quickly and to piggyback. We're kind of, I don't see, or correct me, I'm not sure that we're doing anything extra than others. And some of the comments I saw over the last few weeks, one of them that bothers me the most is the fact that although we want our landscaper in the town to maybe change their practice, there's not enough incentive to really change their practice. For example, it is absolutely not necessary to have for 4 months, 6 months, 12 months a year when there's not snow, the leaf blowing. And the fact that we're not adding some kind of guidance there. And, I was very open on the listserv. I said, instead of offering you guys, the guy that comes to your home, although you may ask him to only do it when you really need it, let's say he does it every week, just say for the next 2 months, you're going to do it you're going to spend one less hour. Right. And that's how you're going to repay yourself. And kind of change these practice of having it, if you're going to offer something, I would not offer money. I would offer less work.
You would offer what?
I would offer to them to do less of the leaf blowing.
Right.
To pay for it. If that's one way someone needs, let's say I'm having a one-on-one conversation with someone. I would just say, just keep paying them the same thing, but tell them they only need to come.
I'm going to pay you the leaf blowing. Yeah. But you're going to do less work.
Yeah, but also in a way to get people to also change that. We do not, so I don't know, like I have no idea why we do it in the summer. I know I need to do only around my gutters because otherwise it's a water management issue, but how can we, my neighbors do it twice a week. So I'm sorry, but that's a fact. So one of my neighbors, I will not name them, but it's why? So how is it? So for me, it's health too, because it's accumulation for these workers, right? The more, and having a thing on your back that you carry all the time makes no sense. So I'm puzzled by the fact that we're not addressing the issue of frequency, or it's like that we're not saying, I'm sorry, July and August is out. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's hear other people before we start talking about. That's an excellent thing. And actually, Kelly O'Cleason is our hired town consultant, going to be putting a manual together of better, more sustainable gardening practices. Right. And that's going to be a major part of.
And maybe we do it as a town to influence people.
Yeah, we're doing it as a town.
Yeah,
we are. Yeah. Anybody, who else?
I shared at the meeting. There was one person at the meeting who, just after everyone else spoke, just listed all these ideas that we could use to weaken the law. We could change the time period. We could, or the time of before the law takes effect. We could make it the law apply to contractors but not to homeowners. We could outlaw the backpacks but allow the handheld gas leaf blowers. It's just he had every idea that people could use to make the law not as effective. And I answered as many as I could. Bottom line, if we don't have the same law, first of all, that there are people who are genuinely concerned that their contractor is going to have 2 sets of equipment. They're going to have the kind they use here and the kind they use there. And if we and the other towns around here have the same law as DC, nobody's going to need to have 2 sets of equipment. We're not going to have to worry about the comparison between the handheld and the other, because they're going to be well equipped to blow their leaves using battery leaf blowers in any jurisdiction. I think that's going to be the thing that is going to be the hardest for us to defend against, is the people who don't say, no, I'm against this, but the people who say, well, I'm sort of for it, but can't we do this other thing?
Right.
So that's where I stand.
I think.
Excuse me, this is Steve. Thank you very much for those comments. I just want to butt in a bit. Normally I like to sit back because I'm just a liaison, but I was concerned by, like you, with some of the comments from John Shorb about, well, just give an exemption for the walk behind leaf blowers or the wheeled leaf blowers. And I have 2 concerns. One, I feel that if we were to give such an exemption, that would tilt the playing field towards the larger landscaping companies that could afford to have multiple pieces of equipment. But more importantly, as you're suggesting, it kind of guts the whole purpose of taking action on gas-powered leaf blowers, which is to reduce noise pollution. I did a little bit of research today, and I found that a typical wheeled leaf blower, and they can be 4-cycle engines, so they might be polluting less in terms of air pollution, but from noise pollution standpoints, they're emitting 100 decibels of noise. And you have to keep, and just for as a reminder, you folks are probably all familiar with this, but in case anybody else listens in on this, this recording, noise is measured on a logarithmic scale. So the county's legal limit is 70 decibels for a leaf blower. So we say that a wheeled leaf blower is rated at 100 decibels. That's actually 300% louder than the legal limit of 70 decibels. 300%. Tremendous. They produce humongous amounts of air. They really blow those leaves. They are very loud, and I feel they are completely unacceptable. That's it. I just had to interject. Thank you.
I have to agree with you, Steve, in the sense we have Andrew on board here. Hi, Andrew. Welcome.
Hey there.
Thanks for joining us. Anyway, when people start talking about things that you just mentioned, Ralph, it basically, what it does is that presentation I gave in the beginning, it just basically says, okay, we're going to remove the first bullet item on this list, which is it's like a public health issue. That's like, okay, it's a public health issue, but maybe that's not that big of a deal. I mean, I just think that's, you know what I mean? That's basically ignoring the major issue here by suggesting these ideas. And also your equity issue is a very interesting one because, I think equity is a very important issue. And I think our discussion with the minority owners was really helpful for me to see the viability that, yes, they can also work with these types of machines. It's not such a huge thing. And if people are really concerned, they can always chip in themselves and help them out. Anyone else want to, Dave? Mute.
I got two comments. The first is just a little bit of a frustration that, some of the objections that are put on the listserv by various folks. Those same folks did not show up for either of the forums.
Right.
So, I'm not sure how much actual, we can continue to try to educate, and, certain people may choose not to want to be educated. And then the second thing, and I think this is what you've already laid out, is enforcement. I think we need to be, come up with some thoughts, or at least some answers on enforcement. And basically, as proposed, the ordinance is basically building off the construction noise ordinance. And that basically means that anyone, exceeds that, they can be then, taken and get a warning and get a citation. I know we have done that, for construction, when people have tried to construct houses before 9 a.m. on a Saturday and things like that. So it does happen. I don't see any reason why we can't do the same thing. Now, the only open question I thought came from the meeting is that who would be receive the citation? Who would have to pay the fine? Would it be the contractor or the homeowner?
Right. That's would be great to get that input from council members.
David, I think with construction permits, at least when I did my house, I think the fines were levied on the property owner, and I think that's an easier mechanism to enforce than trying to go around, collecting monies from random landscapers.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I just
And
want
the other thing is, as far as enforcement, once the time happens, we will be able to quickly understand who's using electric and who's not. And then the question becomes, how do how, if someone is using a non-electric, how can that be? How will they be reported?
Right. Before Marnie, I just wanted to say that when I did correspond with these people that had concerns about the ban, it was a very cordial interaction. You might have seen a bunch of the emails on the listserv, and at the end of all of them, I invited them to the upcoming forums and town meetings to share their ideas verbally. So I am also miffed that none of them showed up. But go ahead, Marnie.
I think I'm a little less comfortable than you are, Barton, about this small and particularly minority-owned firms. I'm not worried about the Shorbs and the Ray brothers who have a pretty big capital base and a lot of experience in the industry. But if you remember on the second forum, our landscape consultant, Kelly, started out by saying, this is a class issue. And she talked some about minority firms and how this might affect them. And as an economist, thinking about how firms, what kinds of firms have easy access to capital, able to borrow, and which kinds have a harder time and may not have a robust balance sheet. And you heard Shorb talk about sort of the shoestring operation some of his employees went and formed. I just think in this, we've had a really hard set of months with the pandemic, I'm really concerned about how this would affect small and minority businesses. And I didn't actually hear Enrique say with his own business that he was ready to make the conversion. It's very different to say it's possible to do it, but I may or may not do it. So that's one of the things I've been worried about. I'm not worried about the Shorbs.
All right. Well, let's take a pause for a second. Thank you, Marnie, for that comment. I mean, obviously, I think Kelly's focus on equity is a very important thing. I do feel like from my conversations that it is possible, especially when the cost of these battery powered leaf blowers are identical to a gas powered one. So next time my landscaper decides to buy a $450 illegal gas powered leaf blower, he might elect to buy a legal one that's battery powered and more healthy for his own employees. And that's not a financial splurge.
Right, but that's one of the reasons why the District of Columbia gave firms 3 years to make the conversion, so that as their equipment wore out, they bought electric. And Chevy Chase Village gave their landscapers 2 years for the same reason.
Okay, well, if I could just respond, and I'll let Jack go. And Matt, I'm gonna, if you don't mind waiting a couple more minutes, please. So it seemed to me that you do see that it is possible that minority landscapers can actually make the transition. But the question is, can it be done in a 1 month period, 1 year period, or 3 year period? And if that's the major issue, then maybe we can consider still having the ban, but making warnings that would allow, my particular landscaper said that his leaf blowers last only 2 years, they die. So that's a 2 year phase out of his machines. So maybe we can consider warnings for the first year or something like that, or so that there's a 2 year gap, or maybe we can consider minority owners as a special exception and give them an extra year of warnings. But Jack, do you have something?
Yeah.
Go ahead, because
A quick question, I hope. Has the town gotten their electric leaf blowers? Has Enrique used them already?
yes, yeah.
Then why does the town insist to continue using the gas powered ones? Today there were 2 gas powered ones running in the grass around here, and they weren't using the electric ones at all.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, it's not about just buying the machines, but there's also education. So we did the education. Now we have to do the follow-up education, right? That's sort of the process. I'm going to switch gears for a second. We can finish up with the leaf blower thing, but Matt is here, as I already told everybody, about your idea to put solar panels on the roof. So why don't you just go ahead, Matt? And
Sure. First of all, thanks everyone. Yeah, basically it came up at one of our pool committee meetings, and with the extension of the pool season, and obviously we were needing to heat the pool as we got into October, and our goal now is to have that not just be a COVID thing, but to have the pool continue to stay open through the end of October and years going forward. And we thought a good way to potentially offset the cost of heating it, potentially even more than offset, would be to have the solar panels put on the roof of the pool. Barton went out and checked it out, and we've got good exposure, especially with when leaves aren't out. I brought it up to Marnie and Mayor Slavin, again, as part of our pool committee, but they felt that it would be more appropriate to have a formal recommendation to the town come from the environmental committee. So we were hoping you all would recommend to the town that they basically get free estimates from some solar panel companies about having panels installed on the roof of the pool. Pool house, not pool, pool house.
Just a question, are these solar panels designed to preheat the water going into the boilers, or are they electric solar panels you're talking about?
The idea would be electric. The idea would be store the energy, not, it doesn't have to be the solar panels on the pool house heat the pool, just more the solar panels on the pool house help, offset energy costs for the town period.
Okay.
I mean, it could end up being the way that they help heat the pool, but that wasn't my idea. It was more just, we've got this roof. It's seemed to me to be a good place to put them, and why not?
Yeah, Veronique.
So there, I don't know how far you are in kind of looking at the details. I'm willing to help, you can reach out to me, after that, but because of my past in the energy sector, there will be some things that are not insignificant to check. The energy use versus how much panels we can put, and there's sometimes grid limitations. So funny enough, sometimes you cannot put something as large as you wish. So there used to be rules for at least district in Maryland, and I don't know where they are in the last 5 years. For example, there's no way I could have everything I could have on my roof because I don't use that much in my house. My house is extremely efficient for its size by its building. So we'd have to look at that. The other thing is there's financially different ways of doing this. So you probably want to talk, especially, Marnie, with the finances that might be difficult in the next 2 years. You could, and I'm saying this because when you go to 3 companies, for me, that was like almost a red flag. You need to know a little bit more what you want, or it's all exploratory. So do you want something that, like, for example, I had way back, Solar City used to have I prepaid $10,000 and I'm done. They bought all the solar RECs for me. I just, pay the electricity I use, and my solar panel is kind of, the benefits of the solar RECs are theirs for 20 years. That concept doesn't exist anymore now that Tesla has bought. So you could buy it upright, or you could buy these systems that you pay as they're kind of becoming your electricity provider, just like the competitive suppliers are. So that has financial impacts. And before you go to suppliers, having an idea of what's acceptable for the town financially might be either step 2 or step 1. I'm not sure, but it's something to discuss with on the financial side, because the offset might not be right away. You may decide to pay for most of it, or or sell or not in advance the solar REC. So there's some granularity there, but it can make a real difference. It's whether the town is doing an investment now, or or it may not even. You may have a solar panel and pay the same thing than you were before, except you're solar. Then you're just doing the environmental part of it, and you're not offsetting any cost.
Dave?
So do you have some advice for what way we should think about going, or before we would go out for bids?
I personally like the fact that mine is paid for. So when I pay my electricity bill, it's what it is. However, I don't think that's on what's much on the market. Often I think people come in, they say, hey, you can have solar and pay the same thing that you would pay normally. And then you're just like solar. And because what they do is they sell these additional. So I don't know if everybody knows what renewable energy credits are.
Yes.
I'll just start with that. Anybody buying wind power, I worked for the first companies that did that, so I'm quite aware. So in the solar system, the value of the solar itself is mandated in every state. So it has a very high value, which could be $200, $300, $400, $500 by megawatt. So it's extremely high. And actually on the board of DC, it has a higher value because the solar REC in DC has a higher value because they ask for more than in Maryland. And it happens that the pool, like most of Somerset, is situated on the DC grid and not in the Maryland grid. Suppliers know that.
Veronique?
Yeah, so there's some detail work, should you pay in advance or not? It depends if the goal is financial for the operation of the pool, or the goal is just environmental. So as the environmental committee, we can say, yes, that's great.
Right.
We will offset environmentally the thing.
I
But
think,
if the goal is financial, it's like, do we make an investment?
I think that you bring up a lot of really important minutia. And Dave, before I let you speak, all I just want to say is I think the idea behind this is to, excuse me, is to create the system as a carbon offset for our town, which is really in line of sort of the whole conversation we've already had about making a climate emergency declaration and wanting to offset the carbon footprint. So how that actually happens, you obviously, Veronique, have a lot of different ideas.
It's fine. I thought it was to offset the cost of extending the pool operations for like 2 months.
You could look at it that
Two
way, but
different things.
also the pool operations is a part of the town's operations.
Yeah.
So it's a town function. But I'm gonna let Dave go ahead because he's been waiting patiently.
Okay, so I second most of what Veronique said. I think that you need to kind of think about how much, what is the total electric consumption over the course of the year, and that will help, what sizing you need to do it, because during the summer you will have more usage, and you will not perhaps have as much, you won't be excess in your the generation, and then in the winter you'll have excess generation. So all of course of the year you can design it such you'll be net zero. But if we're going to be, a carbon offset, perhaps town, a hall or anything else, then we may want to oversize.
But we can't. That's what I'm saying. I believe that we can't.
There's like 120. There's a maximum size.
Yeah, exactly.
20%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Of the size of the facility.
Of the meter. Yeah.
Right. So, but given the town, the pool, it has lights, has pumps, and and heating. That's a reasonable amount of electric, but it's not huge. There's no air conditioning. There's no heating.
That's
So
right.
I think before you go and talk to any of the contractors, have the Pepco bill in front of you to for a full year to be able to determine it.
Pat, is the heat for the pool gas or electric?
It's gas.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
then.
would be horrifically expensive to heat it with electricity.
Yeah.
But if it's free, I mean, if it's coming from the solar, so that's
Well, yeah, but I mean, in the current circumstance,
Yeah.
right. But if we're trying to offset carbon,
Yeah.
that's
I wonder if you, when you get estimates, you could say we are considering electric heating of the pool. Would you allow us to double up the panels? No.
Sorry. That's usually, anyway, the number of conversations I got in between Petco and Washington Gas on like these change of problems, doesn't, but there is something I don't know. So I'm just like brainstorming. I'm willing to brainstorm with the pool committee people and Marnie, separately is the town meter, can the pool serve for all of the metering of the town versus just the pool?
That's what I was wondering as well.
So
I don't know. They're on different electrical grids.
no feeders,
No.
not
meters. So I think that's the question that someone,
Starting point.
and I think we have enough contact to kind of figure that out. But what we would need from the town is the electrical bill by meters, and then run them on an Excel sheet and kind of see this and see the potential. And it's pretty easy to kind of size what that would look like and, what it would look on the roof. And one of the reason that we could give, if it's allowed to combine buildings, which I actually think there is something, because Montgomery County, I believe, does it, is the fact that the town hall is historical.
Right.
So-
Let me ask you this.
how many watts the panels on the available roof space on the pool, how many watts they would potentially generate at peak?
It's huge. Could be, that could be probably put like 20 kilowatts on that roof.
Right.
There's plenty of space on the roof. The only issue I have with the roof is that, it is western facing.
South.
Well, it's mostly, all right, you're right. It is south. Okay.
It's completely south facing.
And during the day, is it blocked by any of the high rises?
I've been down there. It
No.
has a full sun during most of the day during the summer and warmer months. In the winter months, it has to look through the trees without leaves at the sun.
It's pretty good.
And so bottom line, that's one of the first things they will do. I have solar on my roof, and you basically, they'll come with a device, and the device will sit there and will do a scan.
You know what? They do it all, they don't even need to come. They will go and Google map the thing. And I mean, 10 years ago, that's how I did it. They evaluated everything. They had it, within an hour, I had a whole proposal.
Yeah, I have a nice graphic that was shown when actually what hour with a tree blocked my solar and things like that. So it's actually, it's a better accurate,
Yeah,
estimate.
exactly. But I mean, in terms of, okay, so.
Let Jack say, contribute.
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of renewable energy and carbon offsets and all that. I just wonder whether the town might have better structures that have 12-month a year utilization. The town hall and the garage complex, the pool is only in use 5-6 months a year. And in the net metering, as I understand it, during the winter months, when you're not using any electricity and you're providing it, it just goes away. It goes to Pepco.
No.
We don't get anything for it.
I don't think
that's not true.
My
Okay.
recollection, Jack, is that the town hall roof is too steep for solar panels, but the garage could work. I think someone looked at that earlier when we had an energy audit.
Well, could somebody chime in and answer this question? But it's my thought process is if we can connect the whole grid together and we have all these solar panels, that even if we're not using the pool in the winter months, we're still using those solar panels to offset our carbon footprint. Isn't that true?
It's going along with what Veronique said. With the sizing, you can't go too much unless we combine. If you combine, then you can have excess.
So we need to figure that out, whether or not we can combine.
But answer to Jack, it actually, in Maryland, at the end of the year, you can get compensated for your excess if you're above your consumption.
Okay, they do it yearly, not monthly.
Right.
Well, it rolls over every month, and then at the end of the year, you're compensated for the excess.
Right. So
It sounds to me like we need to do a little bit of groundwork before we would go out and ask for 3 bids. It's better to find the issues and what we should include and not include.
correct.
Yes, I agree.
My question to everyone is, it seems like in general, everyone has made a contribution to this conversation in a positive way. And it seems like we should continue down this path of exploring the possibility of making this happen. So my question is, maybe can someone move to recommend that the Environment Committee recommends that the Pool Committee and our committee jointly pursue the groundwork exploration first, and then finding 3 bids to do that?
Can I ask one question? Marnie, could we also work with, I don't know how this works, with Matt to see if this, just in case this is going to encompass all buildings, to even
Yeah,
if the
I
solar
mean,
panels, yeah.
Yes, you should work with him, and the office, we could provide the electric bills
Okay.
over a period of time and so
Okay.
on.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
So that, it sounds like, Veronique, you sound like you have some personal interest in being, looking at.
I could help.
That'd be
Matt,
awesome if you would.
You're gonna pin me on this.
I can help too.
Yeah, I mean, you
No,
don't
it's
have to be
like-
the point man, but.
No, and
Every-
Matt, I'd like to work with you, but I think in terms of the council, we can say that the environmental committee, will.
And Dave as
pursue
well.
that.
That would be great.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can someone make a motion to make a recommendation that I just said?
I make a motion.
I'll
Okay,
second it.
awesome. So everyone in favor of recommending.
Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Who seconded?
I did, Jack.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Make a let's vote on going forward with the process of the Environment Committee working with the Pool Committee to explore the possibility of putting solar panels on the roof. Everybody in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think we have a majority.
I'm gonna have to jump out. So
Okay.
thank you, everyone,
Matt?
before you put me on something else.
Ha! Like I said, Veronique, you don't have to do it. I think Dave also showed interest, so
Great.
I can't
Thank
hear
you
you
all.
anymore. Anyway, thanks, Matt, for joining us, and I really applaud your interest in doing this project, and I hope it moves forward.
My pleasure. And thank you all, for joining.
All right. So I guess did we come to a good ending point with the leaf blower conversation? Or is there something outstanding that somebody else wanted to bring forward?
I think you were mentioning, answering Marnie's concern about, possibly the second, extending the time and things like that as a
Right.
possible way to address them.
In particular towards the minority owners.
Right.
One of the things, I've listened to the forums a couple of times, and it sounded like in the first forum, is it Ali from Chevy Chase Village?
Yes.
Talked about going, if not door to door, regularly walking the village and talking to landscapers and having a bilingual brochure and talking to the homeowners. Is that part of the plan here?
Yes, the education campaign is a definite yes to that question. We're going to be doing door to door. We're going to be doing everything we can do to educate, just like we're struggling to do right now with our own town maintenance crew. Okay, and we're learning the process of what it means to educate and the necessity for follow-up and all that stuff. So yes is the answer.
Answer Jack's question. I don't have a definitive answer, Jack, but I also noticed it didn't look like electric leaf blowers yesterday at the Greystone entrance, but I was driving, so I couldn't stop to check and see. I think it deals with preference and efficiency from their perspective. But
Yeah.
that's a guess. No one has told me that, and I haven't asked. But given a choice,
Yeah, I suspect you're right, but they're illegal in Montgomery County and they're still using them.
nobody has, you could get, if they're illegal in Montgomery County, someone can call the county and have them do enforcement about that.
Mhm. Let me ask the committee, would we be open to the idea of making a special circumstances for minority-owned landscaping businesses, whereby the normal warning followed by citation idea, which is already used with construction-related work, that we would make an exception and say that there would be an extra year of warnings and no citations, but there would still be the same level of education, so that, during this next year and the following year, the landscapers can't go out and just buy another gas-powered leaf blower and suddenly have a new leaf blower. I mean, that's not allowed. If it's gonna die, they need to get a battery-powered one. And so I don't know what your thoughts about making special exceptions for minorities to keep them in the warning category as opposed to citations.
So, Barton, I think when you go down that road, you're entering into a bit of a rabbit warren, because there are plenty of other, there may be, white guys who have small landscaping businesses who say, well, I don't have the Ray Brothers capital, but why can't I apply to this? I mean, I think it might be useful to do a little bit of additional ad hoc information gathering just by talking to a number of other, apparently minority-owned companies, and just ask them, how often do you replace your equipment? How long does a typically a leaf blower last for you?
Right.
Does anybody in the committee speak Spanish? Part of the issue, I think, even with our own town staff, is it's not always clear we communicate well. I don't speak Spanish. A lot of the people in the office don't speak Spanish.
Right.
And you can't always expect that they're going to understand English. And that may be true of some of the minority firms.
We do have
So
Spanish.
people will say, oh yeah, sure.
We don't have anyone on this committee that speaks Spanish, I don't think, but
We have people in town though, you might be able
Yeah.
to enlist.
we do.
I
We
mean, I think
should.
the other thing is I noticed in reading material from the town and from the town of Chevy Chase, that the town and Chevy Chase Village thought they had about 50 landscapers who worked in that geographic area. Do we have any idea how many landscapers are working in Somerset?
No idea, but I mean, we could, that's would be part of the this education campaign, is trying to ask people to talk to their landscapers and maybe creating a list of the landscapers that have been contacted. We're gonna have to do a whole bunch of stuff, and it sounds like from Andrew and Dave's response that we just need to go forward with educating people and maybe dealing with each landscaper uniquely. If there's a gross violation, if they just keep on buying new machines and they are buying illegal machines, then we're just going to have to say, listen, you guys have to retire those machines. You keep on buying them new, that they're illegal, and we're just going to have, there's so many different types of landscapers and situations. We're just going to have to go case by case and make this work and make this transition happen. It's going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge because some people are going to comply immediately. Other people are going to be adamant, but that's just the nature of, and there's also people who are going to say, I want my property blown twice a week and I don't give a damn what you say. And then we're going to have other people that are going to trim down to using leaf blowers only once every 3 months. So this is going to be a process.
I can imagine if I were, working in a different country and I walked into Stroh Schneider's kind of place and they were selling gas-powered leaf blowers that the county says are illegal. I wouldn't understand that those were not those are not the kind of leaf blowers I should be buying. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility that has not been taken on by the vendors or the county.
Yeah.
And you could say the same thing about the pesticides law.
Yeah.
That you can go to Home Depot and buy, the Roundup and everything else.
Yeah.
The county has made the use of Roundup okay
for individuals,
for individuals with sidewalk cracks and
right.
in limited locations.
But that's not, there's not really that demonstrated, and there's not much signage on that at Home Depot saying that.
Right.
So I'm not sure we can call on that. I'm actually somewhat, of support the idea of a gradual implementation. We're setting off and doing just warnings at first. In a sense, it's like what the county's been doing on pesticides. They have even though the law is in place and it's been in place for a year, they were allowed the first year to be an education year and for there be warnings and that type of stuff. So
right.
I would be okay with at least doing that, but still have the implementation date to be the same, but just have the warnings happen just in the first year.
Well, I think it's all about how do we, get people on board, and how is that process? Is it going to happen quickly or is it going to be slow and painful? It's all about education. There's a lot of people in this neighborhood who are very supportive of this ban, and they're going to be active. I'm hoping to activate them to be a part of educating their own landscapers and their neighbors. And it's not just going to be the 6 of us or 7 of us on the phone going door to door when this COVID thing is behind us, but it's also going to be all these neighbors. We're going to have to get people involved. So, this is about education. So, whether or not we take 2 years of warnings, we're going to have to play it by ear and see how this thing shakes out.
I think it's likely to be a more effective strategy to put the onus on the property owners to say, look, we have new rules coming in. They start, January 1st, 2022. There's going to be effectively a kind of a grace period in terms of enforcement with notices, but you need to be aware that, the responsibility will be on the property owners. And when you talk to your landscapers, you'll need to make it clear to them that, they need to be using electric blowers on your property, whether you want that done 3 times a week or, once a month, whatever it is.
I agree with you.
Very hard. I mean, it's useful to try to educate the landscapers, but there's so many of them and they come and go. I think it's more effective to focus on the property owners, so they understand what their responsibilities are going to be in terms of hiring the contractors to do their work. It's, when I worked at IFC, we had lots of environmental guidelines for our client companies. And the onus was on the client companies to ensure their contractors complied with our rules, because we weren't going to go around and, vet fires. And, obviously it's a much different situation with a supply chain and corporate investors and things. But at the end of the day, it's sort of, you're hiring the person, you do need to make sure that they're doing what's in accordance with the rules and et cetera in their jurisdiction. So I think.
Yeah, I think that's well articulated. We've reached the hour mark, and we didn't discuss about 2 things, but I'm not sure whether they're critical. I mean, the climate emergency declaration was really a thought to just basically piggyback what Montgomery County has already done. And that's our way of sort of saying we're part of this international movement of focusing on the climate. And, this project with Matt Zaft is toward that same goal. So maybe in the next meeting in 2 months, we can decide just to whether or not we want to just piggyback that as a way of making a declaration so that other townships can know that we are a part of this international movement.
So, Bart, I just want to add to that, the climate action plan that the county's been working on should be out this week. And so if we're waiting for our next meeting, we'll have the benefit have had a chance to see what they're proposing in order to meet the county's, so give us some ideas of, what is expected and what are the, really a much better idea of education and such. So I recommend waiting, but, I just want to let you know it's happening this week.
Great. And then the other thing was just the stormwater committee update. I don't know whether Jackie wanted to say a few words about that or not.
Yeah, just a couple quick words. They had their formation meeting on the 23rd of November. There are 9 members that are appointed by the council. I introduced myself as the informal liaison with the Environment Committee, that we're certainly interested in stormwater management from an environmental perspective. But it became very clear during the meeting that their agenda is completely different. They didn't talk at all about the environment and the stormwater. They're all worried about property damage. And almost everyone on the committee has been a recipient of property damage from stormwater at some point over the years. And so that's their focus. And so I explained that I was hoping that we could work together and that maybe even a joint resolution to the council at the end where we put forward our environmental concerns and they put forward their property management concerns, but that the bottom line is the same, that we're trying to mitigate stormwater.
Good. Thank you for that update. That's very illuminating. And I guess the thing about the LED lights in Little Falls Parkway, this is a question for Marnie, which had been brought up during our LED pilot study. But did we ever discuss with the Pepco people about what type of LED lights they're considering for changing their entire, because, obviously we don't want blue light and we want the soft light because it is disturbing of the circadian clocks of these animals. For sure, and that's the science is in on that already.
My understanding, Barton, is that they will have a list of about 30 fixtures in their final tariff if this all goes forward. About 5 or 6 of them would work in our Cobra lights. I mean, the fixtures will be for all the different kinds of street lights. People have decorative ones. But they would have choices for the Cobra heads. I have not seen what those choices would be. And we certainly looked at how you can have the screening, the down with the LED lights we actually had were much more down focused than the current street lights we have.
Right. So you're saying 30 different types of LED lights will be available countywide?
Right, but only 5 or 6 would fit in our poles.
Understand.
Because some of them will be decorative. Some, I don't know what all kinds they'll have.
So maybe at some point we could communicate to Pepco that we would like to have some options that include no blue light and softer light. Is that possible to do that? Or
I can ask Tammy about it.
So
that would be awesome.
Two comments on the LED lights. The blooming of those cherry trees, that was heat related. The light, not create them to bloom. That was a fact. It was warmish in late November.
Okay.
They also do that every year, those trees bloom. So
Right.
it has nothing to do with the lights.
And then
I
the
also
second thing
think-
is that this is Parks control, and Parks makes a decision. And what I've learned is whatever Parks wants, they will not listen to anybody else, and they say, I don't care.
The other thing is I read some online, Barton, and getting ready for the meeting, and it sounded from what I read online as though it was the red part of the spectrum that was more conducive to the trees blooming and so on, rather than, so like the high pressure sodium lights are not good at all around the trees, but the LED lights tend to have a different light characteristic and were not as damaging.
Okay. Any last points before we end the meeting?
I have one. I think if we don't approve the minutes, then it'll be 4 months between the time.
Oh, do we
of
not approve
the
them?
October meeting and
Okay.
and I only am thinking of this because I have one suggestion. It's listed as a special meeting, and true, it wasn't. We normally meet on the second Wednesday, but this was on the second Thursday.
Okay.
But it wasn't a special meeting. It was just our normal October meeting, one day late because of the leaf blower.
All right. So I've removed that word, and we did approve our minutes last time, so we didn't forget it before. But can I have a motion from somebody to approve the minutes, please?
I would like to make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, great. We've approved it. Thank you, Ralph. Okay, I think we're done for tonight. Thank you, everybody. That was productive, and I think very, very happy and excited to continue working with everybody. So let's keep it going.
Barton,
Good night, everybody. Have a good holidays.
Good night. Thanks.
happy holidays, everybody.
Barton, you saw the big water tower take off?
Yeah, I did, and it blew up at the.
It was a successful test. It did everything they wanted to do. They just had some kind of a engine problem at the end.